Welcome to Tourism Talk. I'm Laura Oswald, Director of Marketing at the Paducah Convention and Visitors Bureau. Today, we're on location in historic downtown to go behind the experience at the River Discovery Center. The signature experience here is entitled Paducah's Rivers, Highways of Heritage. There is so much heritage to celebrate and explore, and so much more inside these doors. Let's go take a look. Here in the Founders Room at the River Discovery Center, we're joined by Julie Harris, Executive Director. Julie, thank you for being with us today.
Good to be here.
I'm excited to go behind the experience and tell our viewers a little bit more about what the River Discovery Center is doing. But before we do, we're really celebrating the Year of Kentucky Storytellers, and you are one of those storytellers. And so let's just start with your Paducah story.
It is all about telling stories at museums. So Paducah exists because we're on a river, and it's important to tell that story of its history, its culture, its commerce, about the natural environment of the river. And so that's really what we do here, is we touch on all those through interactive experiences and exhibits.
Awesome. And so for locals, we all feel, I think, very connected to the rivers here. And this is such a special place that celebrates that in all forms. So for locals that haven't been here, tell us a little bit about where we're located, this building, and how people can find you.
Well, we're in a very historic building. It's the oldest building downtown, dating pre-Civil War. And originally, it was a bank. It was the Branch Bank of Louisville. The family that operated the bank lived upstairs in the space that we're actually in right now. And we've restored the building back to its Victorian look. And after it was a bank, it was a hotel. It was later the gathering place for the people that formed the Episcopal Church here in Paducah. And then in the late 1890s, the Petter family started a business here that supplied the steamboats that were stopping at our port. And that business evolved over the next 100 years, and along with the Industrial Revolution, into a full-blown industrial supply business. And with that, their space requirements were such that they needed to move out of these spaces, and they relocated, and the city purchased this whole block, and we were able to restore the building with several grants that we got from a Save America's Trust, which is a granting program through the National Park Service, actually. And we were able to use our local historic preservation specialist here, Ray Blackenstein, and they restored the building back to its wonderful look from the 1800s.
Yes, and it is so beautiful. Here we are in the Founders Room overlooking the murals. You can see the rivers just right out these windows.
Yes.
It really sets the stage.
Well, and even more than just looking at the rivers, we're looking at the confluence of the Ohio and Tennessee rivers, which makes it all the more special.
Yes.
And you know, that's one of the reasons we need a museum that teaches about our rivers, is because not only are we at the confluence of those two rivers, but we're not far from the Mississippi or Cumberland rivers. And so that story is very important.
It is very important, and it really puts us in a pivotal place for connecting our nation. And so I think that for locals and visitors alike, this is a really key experience to have.
Yes, we like to refer to our rivers as our nation's highways, because they're transporting goods along the river that have a real impact on all of us daily. And so that's another message that we teach here.
Absolutely. Well, you certainly keep that story alive. And before we jump into the experience, share with visitors, if they want to visit throughout the year, you're open 6 to 7 days a week.
Yes, from April through November, we're actually open 7 days a week, and Monday through Saturday, 9:30 to 5, and on Sundays, 1 until 5. In the winter, we're closed on Sundays, but you can still visit us 6 days a week.
Great. Thank you, Julie.
So we feel like we're pretty accessible, and we want you to come visit.
Absolutely. Well, that is a great primer for all of our locals, but many locals may belong to local groups, garden clubs, church groups, youth groups that may have interest in a very special experience that you're offering here.
Yes.
And it actually is called Paducas Rivers Highways of Heritage. And I think that that really does transport people from the olden days on up to now, that kind of continual connection and flow that the rivers provide us here. Tell us a little bit about the experiential development process for you and your team. What were you really focused on bringing out through this?
Well, we felt that the story of the economy of the river was so important to tell, because you can't appreciate the impact that Paducah as a community, and really our entire region, has because of our location situated right at this. We're often referred to as the hub of the inland waterways. And with that, we have many of the nation's biggest towing and barge companies headquartered here in Paducah. And telling that story of what they do is really important. We have educational programs that do that for school groups, but for groups that are interested in coming, we felt that they would have an interest in really learning about the economy of the river.
And as you do with an experience, you really have made that personal for people. And you've worked closely with river industry and are working with actual real life river captains.
Yes, we do. So our experience basically brings in a captain on one of the towboats. And most of the captains we work with have years and years of experience. And so they can impart that story and their knowledge in a way that is very authentic. And the groups that we've seen are fascinated. It's something that most people aren't aware of. You know, I grew up in this community, born and raised, and knew very little about the river. And that's not a good thing. We need to know where we come from and what it's all about. So the groups that come in here get to experience it and learn about it directly from stories and what it's like working out on the river and what they do and how they rotate shifts and all kinds of things. And typically when we have a certain amount of time allotted for that part of their visit to the River Discovery Center, often they go overtime.
Lots
because
of questions.
They have questions and questions and questions.
Very interesting.
So it is.
Well, that is such a special part of the experience, and it does. I mean, it really engages people, that firsthand perspective. And maybe something that, whether they're from a river city or not, it does affect their life. So, that is really such a really special element. There are some really great elements all throughout the museum during the experience. What are some of those other areas?
Well, along with the economy of the river, we have some interactive experiences that educate about the entire inland waterway system. Most people are familiar with the rivers that are close to us, but there are so many others that make up that entire system in the Mississippi River watershed, as it's referred to. And so teaching people about those other waterways is important, and how it connects to one city to another. And so one of our exhibits, called Hidden Highways, allows the visitor to select point A and point B and see which rivers are used to get there, and what the distance traveled is, and what the elevation above sea level is. And so they get to experience that. We have an exhibit called River Spy that allows, with the camera on our rooftop, allows the visitor to zoom in on vessels that are out on the river. So that's a way we try to connect people to the river, because visually we've got our flood wall. And so we don't see it all the time. And so we want to take people to the river. We have a state-of-the-art boat simulator that is built by a company that builds them for some of the biggest navies in the world. So it's the real thing, but it's done in a way that is very user-friendly and allows the visitor to select from either navigating with a towboat, a speedboat, or a Coast Guard vessel. And in different scenarios, under bridges, around areas, into a lock, but not through the lock. And they can actually pick a day or nighttime simulation. And the most popular is the speedboat. Even though we're all about towboats here,
Yes.
most everybody wants to spin in a speedboat, and so that's a very popular exhibit. We have an exhibit called our Rain Table that's all about flooding. We have an exhibit about dredging. We have an exhibit showing that's our lock and dam that sort of shows what a lock and dam would look like, and gives them a sense of the connection between our railways and our river, because both have to coexist. So we have an exhibit about the natural environment of our rivers and talking about the different types of environments that we find along the waterways. And we have music stations that they can listen to music from different eras along the river. We have wonderful models of steamboats and towboats, so the visitor can see up close and personal what these types of boats and vessels look like. So we really sort of touch a little bit on everything.
Yeah, there really is something for all ages. You know, I think that it is accessible to people, bringing the story, something that people can feel and experience here, truly.
That's right.
One of the things I think with the experience we have to mention, as you talk about music, one of the customizations with the experience is actually dinner and music.
Yes.
And that's a great add-on.
Yes, we have several different options available for groups. If they select that signature experience with the towboat captain, they can add on a meal here, and it's in the room that we're in, so it's in a very pretty setting with a nice view of the river. We also can bring in a musical group to entertain them while they're having their meal. Yeah. So those are add-ons that we find that I would say most groups like to have.
And what is that typical group size, or what range of group size can you handle?
Well, we can handle comfortably a group up to around 50. Could go a little bit more than that, but what we do if we have a group that size is we'll divide them into two groups and rotate them, and so that everybody gets to experience everything. But you know, we're flexible. We work with what you've got, what you have.
That's so great. And I think, you know, as we do think about this museum and think of maybe local groups that would be relevant, I think of people, you know, if you're planning a wedding for your daughter now, thinking of those family groups that come in, maybe for a reunion or a group of friends, a class reunion. This is a great option.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. We find that all kinds of groups have an interest.
Awesome. And when I will take this moment to remind everyone to check out paducah.travel/groups, and they'll find more details about this and the other signature experiences in riverdiscoverycenter.org.
That's right.
And
that's our website where you can find out all the information you need about the cost and the time and directions.
You know, experience is a big buzzword in the travel industry now, and I imagine it is in the museum world as well. What do you see the value of experience being for your visitors?
Well, you know, going through that process of creating the experience allowed us to get a sense of how important that is. And when we think of our experiences that we have ourselves, we can appreciate how taking that experience to a new level makes it memorable.
Exactly.
And so rather than just be one of the types of experiences is called show and tell. And that would be just basically like if you have an object in a museum and a label on it. And so we try to be more than show and tell, because if you think about it, just seeing and reading something doesn't create a memorable experience. And so in this day and age, with so much technology and so many advances in the museum world and in all kinds of attractions, we're all competing for that visitor. And so we try to have experiences that set ourselves apart.
And you're definitely doing that and keeping Paducah at the heart of that, which
Yes.
we're so grateful
Yes.
that this museum is here. And you know, we call this River Discovery Center. Museum
Yes.
is not in the name, but you're very involved in the museum world. Tell us about how you see yourself, how you see River Discovery fitting into that museum landscape.
Well, it's important when I go around the country and to different museum meetings. People are always very interested in that because you don't hear about a lot of river museums. And it's important to tell that story, and they're always very interested. It's important that our community has this place. It really belongs to the community. And we have wonderful programs for children, some award-winning programs. That's really our mission, is educating. And we also consider the experience here to be a family experience. We're really something for all ages. And we even have a small children's play area, so something for the kids to do while the parents might want to take a little bit more time with the exhibits. And so all of our spaces are friendly to all ages, and we work hard to make that a good experience.
Well, as we overlook the river here, I think of another program that you all do, and you mentioned your education, the Mound Builders program. And that can be part of the experience as well, but certainly is something that has gained a lot of attention for how you are talking about Paducah's first settlers.
Yes. So we created a program about 5 years ago called the Mound Builders. And that refers, when you say mound builders, to the Mississippians. And they were our indigenous people in this whole region. And so we created this program. It's targeted for fifth graders because that's what they're studying in fifth grade. And it touches on all aspects of communities, and it touches on math, science, social studies. So teachers really love it. They find that many of the questions that are on testing are sometimes answered with that experience. The kids love this program because it ends with a little archaeological dig. And each of them have their own boxes, and they dig in scientific method, like a grid, and find artifacts and have to report their findings. And so everybody has a good experience.
That's so awesome.
Yes.
And, you know, I think of Fowler Black and I were talking about the floodwall murals and how those are such a jumping off point. And we do see mound builders along the floodwall and so many murals that relate to the experience here.
Yes.
Really.
Yes, yes, there are. I mean, the section right out in front of us between Broadway and Kentucky, all those murals relate to the river. And so some aspect of history or something about the river. And so it is a great tie-in for sure.
Well, we certainly encourage our viewers to pop in as they're walking the mural wall, to step on inside the River Discovery Center and see these wonderful exhibits you have. Consider the experience as well. I would love for you to share a little bit about a connection you have with some other museums, a reciprocal agreement. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So we have a great program, actually two different programs that we have reciprocal arrangements with two organizations. One's the Southeastern Museums Conference, and then the other organization is the American Association of Science and Technology Centers. And through our membership with those two organizations, all of our museum members get reciprocal benefits at every one of those participating museums in their organizations. Awesome. So that's actually, if you're a member here, you get benefits at over 550 museums and science centers all over the U.S.
What would be some of those museums?
Well, just, I mean, you've got them in Nashville and Louisville, St. Louis, but one of my favorites is a story about a grandmother taking her daughter and grandchildren to Chicago, and she visited several museums, and when you count all the admission fees for their group of, I think, 5 of them, she said that she saved over $200 just through her museum membership with us. So it is very worthwhile. And
Definitely something to inquire about.
I know I would have appreciated it when I was taking my children to museums. So
That's awesome. And I'm just trying to make sure we hit on all the ways that
Yes.
people can engage with you all.
Yes.
Another really unique and special way is through the dragon boat races. Tell us about that program.
Well, I went to a museum meeting and learned about a dragon boat race. Had never heard of it. Most people here locally weren't familiar with that. It was another museum down in Louisiana, actually, that was hosting an event called the Dragon Boat Races. And dragon boat racing dates back over 2,500 years and is an ancient Chinese sport. And dragon boats are like 40-foot long canoe-like boats. And then they have very colorful painted heads and tails. And then they have rows, I think it's 11 rows of seating for two per row. And so this sport moved into North America, started moving here about 25 years ago, and is actually the fastest growing team sport in North America. So what we do is, it's a fundraiser. It's the largest fundraiser we've ever had, and it's enabled us to expand our programming. So it's been very important to the museum. We bring in a company out of Montreal, Canada, and they actually provide all the boats and all the equipment and all the professional steersmen for the boats. And then we have companies here locally, everything from banks to hospitals to the river companies, all types. CrossFit has a team. Just a wide variety of companies participate in the dragon boat races. And so it's each team, actually, we have teams of 16 paddlers, and each boat has a drummer that sits on the front of the boat facing the team. And their purpose is really twofold. One is by the beat of the drum to keep them paddling in sync. And then the other is to boost team spirit. And so they typically will dress up in costume in a theme. And it's very entertaining.
It is.
makes for a very fun day. And we actually have, at our lunch break during the day, we have a fashion show of all of the drummers. So it's what I loved about the event when we started it, and we're going into our 8th year, is that it not only was it a fundraiser for us, and that's wonderful, but for the teams that are participating, it's a great team building event, and it's also a great wellness activity. It's very family friendly, and it's just a lot of fun. And so we've had a great experience. The community likes it. All of our teams almost always come back each year to participate, and it's a good workout too.
It is. I've had the opportunity to participate. It's so much fun. It's definitely a workout. You're sore the next day, but it's so amazing to be out there in the middle of the Ohio.
I know, because most people haven't seen Paducah from that perspective.
Right.
And so, like you, I actually haven't participated on a team, but I did during one practice because I wanted to see what the experience was like. And it really showed me how out of shape I was. But it's a great, a fun event for the community, and we're excited that it still is around.
Awesome. And that's each September. So
Yes.
people can find more information about that on your website
Yes,
as well.
they
and
can.
our website, Paducah
Yes,
Travel.
yes. It's September 21st this year.
Wonderful.
So.
Well, what else would you like to say or leave our viewers with today? Just a final thought about the River Discovery Center and how you're preserving cultural heritage and Paducah's river ties through the experience.
You know, When I grew up, I knew very little about the river, and I just think it's so important that our next generation understands its history and its place, and understand how important it is, and what the industry is doing for us, and why that being our largest employer in Paducah is so important in our community. And it's really important that children understand this. So bring your kids, bring your grandkids, bring yourselves, and learn a little bit about the river.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. We
Yes.
appreciate you sharing with us today
Sure.
and look forward to continuing to follow our history forward
Yes.
as a river city here in Paducah.
I'm glad you all came.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us today on Tourism Talk, going behind the experiences as we go on the road, celebrating Paducah's signature experiences. Visit paducah.travel/groups for a full listing and join us next time to learn even more.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba